Hello there, a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for watching Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. My name is Anthony Sebale, and yes, we are here for another edition of the financial markets to take you through what has been happening where you have been not, and probably what's making headlines in the global, regional, and domestic financial markets. And of course, we do bring you the latest updates and give you opportunities as an investor to be able to diversify your portfolio, looking into the business headlines and as well as the movers and the big boys in the stock market and the treasury bond market here. Remember to follow the show at on our Twitter handle, that is at Smart24TV, and follow me personally at Anthony Sebale for more of that action coming in from the different stock exchanges. But remember also to check out GOTV East Africa, talking about the treasury bond market here in East Africa. The GOTV company is taking lead in this bracket of the financial markets. With GOTV East Africa, we are doing something new by helping you getting to buy or sell treasury bonds in East Africa by simply dialing *292#. Now, this means you're going to transfer money off your mobile wallet directly onto the GOTV platform and be able to buy treasury bonds in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Treasury bonds are transferable debts to government, and these come through the central banks, and they do come with a return, an annual return. And GOTV is getting you that with as simple as a dial of a phone. And you can say that with GOTV, you do something new because they are one of a kind. Let's get right into the business of the stock markets here in Africa. First of all, getting to look into the Uganda Securities Exchange, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and other stock exchanges across Africa. Later on, we will also be crossing over to United States, where the stocks slid on Friday following a hotter than expected inflation data output there on Friday by the Federal Reserve Bank, and that of course impacted how the markets turned out this time round on Friday as we closed. But looking across Africa, first and foremost, in East Africa, things were a little bit moderate, with major indices losing a little bit of value, and the big indices as well, like the NSE20 and the NSE25, shedding off a couple of points on Friday. But outside East Africa, in Ghana, the stock exchange added 3.1 points on their benchmark index there at Ghana Stock Exchange, and Johannesburg lost 1,779.96 points. There seems to be a relationship every time with the US market and the African market. I'm still trying to figure out how, but you generally see every time there is a bear market in the US, it comes back to us down here, and you can see the effects. Look, for example, looking at the Friday trends, the US stock stumbled mainly on Friday, with the S&P 500 sinking 1.3% and the Dow Jones losing over 400 points, as well as the Nasdaq Composite losing over 1.6%. Now, the biggest stock exchange in Africa as well lost over 1,779.96 points. There seems to be a relationship. There's no proven scientific research that shows there is one, but definitely these markets work hand in hand, and you will find especially international investors on the African market making lots of investments on the continent because of the fastest growing economies that are currently on this continent. And so definitely you see a little bit of similar pictures. Whatever is happening on the US market sometimes is actually portrayed here on the African markets, evident of the Friday tradings on, for example, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Talking about briefly, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange on Friday had over 327 companies that are listed participating in trades, which ended with 221 gainers and 85 losers. Jesco Electronic Holdings led the gainers with an 18.18% appreciation in points at a price of about 0.13 South African Rand closing the markets on Friday. We also had Sab Zembele Kabili also led at 14.19%, and Delta Property Fund at least 11.54% lead there. Now, on the losing side, we had stocks like Action come at the bottom with a 15.39% drop, and the also Allies Holdings losing 12.5% on the market. Choppy's Enterprises as well lost 11.54%, and Steinhoff International Holdings lost close to 9.09%. Now, Fast Rand recorded the biggest volume of close to over 18.8 million shares on the South African market. Remember, Fast Rand company is a holding company, publicly registered bank controlling company, and the firm engages in the provision of banking, insurance, and investment services and products, both for real, commercial, corporate, and the public sector of customers. The group also wholly owns the Fast Rand Bank, a full-service bank with a presence mostly in this South African region and surrounding, of course, South African nations like Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and the like. Currently, when you look at this Fast Rand company, it has close to 379 billion rand on the exchange in Johannesburg, making it the 9th most valuable. The stock lost 1.99, unfortunately, on the last day of trading on Friday, but at least there was a big movement of over 901 million South African rand turnover that was moved on the market. Currently, this particular company is the 3rd most traded own stock, yes, on the biggest stock exchange in Africa. And in the last 3 months, we are talking of close to 695 million shares in close to 425,911 deals recorded within the same period. So that's Fast Rand there for you, moving the South African market. Kibo Energy also had 13.7 million shares, a pretty huge volume there. And Steinhoff International Holdings at 13.4 million shares, and Sibanye Stillwater had about 13.3 million shares. We are still talking about the biggest stock exchange in Africa, the busiest and most traded on stock exchange. That is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Regarding the performance of their market indices, the benchmark, the J203, gained about 840 points at the end of the trades on Friday, though it began with a few losses on Friday morning. But by the end of the day, there was a gain of close to 840 points. Currently, it's counting a 1-week loss of just 1.52%, a 4-week loss of 1.86%, and an overall year-to-date gain of 8.6%. Generally speaking, the South African market has improved in general in 2023 based on data of year-to-date. And this is attributable to companies like Fast Rand and Sibanye, as well as Kibo Energies. And you can check out these on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Elsewhere in Africa, Nairobi lost 0.11 points on Friday on their benchmark index, as we shall see later on in the show, and look into the detailed performance. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, on the other hand, actually had a bullish market with close to 278.15 points or 278 points added to their benchmark index. Now, the day of trading on Friday at Zimbabwe Stock Exchange was participated in by 24 Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listings, and these ended with 13 gainers and 4 losers, with African Sun leading the gainers with a 12.67% share price appreciation, closing at 88.75 Zimbabwe shillings there. The Fidelity Life Insurance also gained 7.41%, and the Dairy Board Holdings also came out last with an end-of-day price depreciation of 11.22%. All share index on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange continued to increase by 278 points, rallying this particularly good stock exchange here in South Africa, that is Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Now let's get back home slightly and have a look at the Uganda Stock Exchange trades on Friday. As per 24th of February, last Friday, the all-share index had lost 2.4 points at the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, Uganda Securities Exchange has 18 companies listed, with 8 domestic cross-listed and 10 domestically listed here in Uganda. In aggregate on Friday, we just had 3 equities participate in trading, with the big boys like Stanbic, MTN and Umeme being amongst the participants. The Centum Investments Company led the gainers this time round with a 1.17% appreciation in price. Remember, Centum has been also struggling to get back to its feet in 2023, though we still haven't seen activity. No one has bought shares yet at Centum this year. And we are hoping that narrative could change. And through you, people who are watching this show, definitely you can consider investing in some of these stocks. Centum historically last year was the only cross-listing that actually put up the slightest activity on the Uganda Securities Exchange, notably about close to a couple of shares, a couple of hundred thousands of shares on the exchange. Kenya Airways rather gained 0.28% as well, continuing to rally the market at a 112.76 Ugandan shillings closing price. Kenya Airways is also still trying a little bit harder this year, though activity is still slow, and we still we haven't seen any shares being bought at Kenya Airways here in Uganda. But back in Kenya, they are working on an alliance with South African Airways to try to revive the airline that has been marred by debt in the recent past, with a couple of pilot strikes and workers unsatisfied with their pay and complaints about the financing of the company. So there's been a little bit of problems in Kenya Airways, but definitely things are probably going to work for better with that South African Airways in partnership. As per last year, Kenya was one of the most indebted airlines in Africa, and one time President Ruto of Kenya on the African USA Summit actually pondered selling Kenya Airways to Delta Airlines. That was just something he mentioned on one of his speeches, but definitely we don't know if that will also come to pass. But at the moment, as I speak right now, the market's opened with Kenya Airways stock at 112.76 Ugandan shillings opening price. Jubilee Holdings Limited stock also gained 0.27%. Remember, Jubilee Holdings Limited is an insurance company based in Kenya, started and founded in Kenya as well, but currently cross-listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and one of the most valuable companies as well on the exchange. Now, it closed Friday trading with a price of 5,387.52 Ugandan shillings. KCB also gained 0.14% on their price at a closing price of 1,131.97 Ugandan shillings. On the losing side, the Nation Media Group lost 2% of value there, down to a price of 444.54. Of course, this working against the company's efforts to get back to the 500 shillings mark. Will it catch up this time round? I doubt so, but we've seen Nation Media Group also lose quite some value on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Right now, there is a business forum in Kenya that is being organized by the Nation Media Group, and it's happening for 1 week. And in this, of course, they're bringing different businesses together to have a conversation on the digital transformation of East African businesses. Equity, East African Breweries Limited, first of all, lost 0.87%, down to 5,122.56 Ugandan shillings. And Equity Bank Limited lost close to 0.27%, down to 1,354 Ugandan shillings. In as far as the traders are concerned, Stanbic Bank Uganda led the biggest movers on the market with a share volume of close to 1.2 million shares valued at 25.7 million Ugandan shillings. The stock price of the company was maintained at 21.0 shillings and their market capitalization as well at 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings. Stanbic Bank still holds the #1 position in the traded stocks here in Uganda in the last 3 months, recording close to a total of 64 million shares in the last 3 months, valued at 1.45 billion Ugandan shillings over the period. Now, Umeme Limited also returned with activity of just 34,069 shares. Yeah, the company seems to be relaxing a little bit in terms of the vigor, the excitement that was amongst shareholders just at the close of last year, when the company issued a public notice that they will not be renewing their concession with government and they will be exiting the country in March 2025. Now, these 34,069 shares that were traded on Friday accrued a total value of just 10.2 million Ugandan shillings on the East African market, and the shares outstanding currently at the company are close to 1.62 billion, valued at the 487 billion market capitalization. Now, Umeme currently still maintains the second most traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange in the last 3 months, with close to over 22.6 million shares. Remember also, Umeme is renowned for being the biggest dividend issuers on the market. Last year, they issued over close to 54.9 Ugandan shillings per share for every shareholder in the company as dividends, which was the biggest on the exchange. It's actually going to be a little bit sad to see Umeme go off the exchange. I know there might have been other management issues with government and so on, but on the exchange, at least, this is a stock that has given back to shareholders. I mean, if you invested in Umeme a couple of years back, you must be at least 9 times richer right now. And trust me, they're going to get all this money back. Because under the listing rules, when you're delisting, of course, you have to, there are procedures to follow. And one of them is the compensation of shareholders. And that, of course, is going to come depending on the value of the shares and how much the company has been able to make, and the different other factors that come in, of course, as debtors, creditors, and so on. So it's going to be a win-win situation for both Umeme and also for the other shareholders, the private equity shareholders and the public stock exchange shareholders as well. MTN recorded 26,950 shares and maintained the price at about 179 Ugandan shillings, meaning they're still stuck at the 179 mark. Now, regarding the all-share index, generally speaking, the index lost 2.4 points on the benchmark index, which tracks the aggregate performance of all the listings, closing at 1,212.05 points. At the moment, we are counting a 1-week loss of 0.25% and an overall year-to-date loss of 0.04%. The USE local company index maintained its value at 273.26 points. Getting to Nairobi, on Nairobi Stock Exchange, we had 49 listings participating in trading, which resulted in 18 gainers and over 25 losers. That definitely impacted negatively the all-share index, tracking the aggregate performance of all the 65 listings on the market, pairing close to 0.11 points down to 126.47 points. Local publishers led the gainers at a 9.45% gain, up to a price of at least 2.78 Kenyan shillings per share. And as well, Liberty Kenya Holdings lost 5.72%, followed by Uchumi Supermarket gaining 5.26%, and TPS East African Serena losing the most at a 9.42% depreciation, down to 12.50 Kenyan shillings. Kakuzi also lost 7.83%, and Flame Tree Group Holdings lost 7.69%, whereas Ever Ready East Africa lost 3.13%. Surprisingly, you will be shocked at the biggest mover on the East African market here. Bamburi Cement came in big at about 2.99 million shares recorded on Friday, followed by KCB at 2.27 and CIC Insurance Company at 600,000 shares, and Safaricom coming with only a volume of 590,100. That's the trading, my friend, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Now let's get to crossover to the US, where there's been a lot of contention due to the data that was released, especially concerning inflation. The US stocks on Friday stumbled as the Federal Reserve most closely watched inflation measure came in stronger than expected, and in another sign that price pressure have become sticky in 2020. The S&P 500, the benchmark index for American companies with the top 500 companies listed, sank at least 1.3% on Friday, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average plopped nearly about 400 points or 1%, and the Nasdaq Composite tanked over 1.6%. On the other hand, the US Treasury yields scrambled higher following the reading, and the two-year note surged 10 basis points to 4.8%. That is on the two-year note, and the 10-year note at least 7 basis points to 3.86%. At the moment, the Personal Consumer Expenditures Price Index, which is the Fed's preferred assessment of how quickly the inflation is rising in the economy, rose 0.6% in January and 5.4% last year overall. On the core basis, which of course strips out volatile components like food and energy from the equation, rose at least 0.6% in the month of January and 4.7% last year on average. The report from the Commerce Department also indicates that consumer spending rose 1.8% last month from December after falling the previous month, and the numbers support recent indications that inflation is not falling at the pace and extent at which investors actually have been hoping, even as prices have stabilized from the peaks of the current inflation cycle. There you have it, my friend. That's it for you from today's edition of Financial Markets. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Smart24TV and follow me at Anthony Sebale. And to check out Altex East Africa, your number one private stock exchange. With Altex, we are saying you can do something new with no hassle under the Zabu initiative, My Money, My Future. With Altex, you can simply dial *292# and following simple ABCD3 steps, and you will be able to register, learn more about the products, buy treasury bonds, sell if you have some you want to sell, and that all coming from your mobile wallet. There is nothing like that. It's a deal breaker, and it's the fast and one-of-a-kind way of accessing the treasury bond market here in East Africa via USSD code. Markets at Altex open at 8 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. Altex East Africa, we can say you can do something new. And thank you so much once again. Smart24 TV has a lot in store for you. Stay tuned. It's a Monday, and of course Monday we mean business. So stay tuned for more, and I'll catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.
Smart24, driving business.
It's super fast internet. Oh, it's a super camera. It's a super battery.
Phone battery full.
Yeah, it's a super deal. Get the Kapote Super from MTN now at a reduced initial deposit of only 49,000 shillings and pay the balance in Pola for as low as 833 shillings per day. Grab this Super Kapote deal and get 2 GB of free MTN data every month for 8 months. Get the Kapote Super now from any MTN shop countrywide. Everywhere you go, MTN. Regulated by UCC.